Okay. Well, welcome everyone, and we are so glad that you're able to join us and join Leanne Clark-Shirley, who's been involved with caregiving, I don't know, Leanne, very long time.
25 years now, I think.
Uh, so it's really a great honor. Leanne is the president and CEO uh, of the American Society on Aging and a whole lot of other things.
Mhm.
She lectures and holds university positions, and we're very honored that she holds a position on our board of directors. So thank you for doing that. Leanne worked and studied in Hawaii for some time and has been following the growth of the Caregiver Foundation for quite a long time as well. But she is a wealth of information and knowledge and wisdom in many areas, and particularly in the area of aging, which I'm moving into more rapidly than I like to admit. But Leanne, thank you so much for joining us. And also joining us is Leanne Briggs. And we're so glad that you're with us this morning too. And we're just going to talk story for a while and hear about updates and interesting and wonderful things that we need to pay attention to. So I'm going to let it roll forward. Thank you for joining us.
All right. So thanks from me too, Leanne. Since you're on the national level, the other coast of the country, working in policy, what do you see, what policy and resources, what do you see are some current and challenges for caregivers now into the near future?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for welcoming me into this virtual space. And I look forward to the day that it is in-person space that we share together again. It will be great. And hello to everyone, aloha to everyone who is watching. As the president of the American Society on Aging, and having just recently relocated back to Maryland in between Baltimore and DC, I have a pretty interesting perspective on hearing from our members what's happening on the ground, as well as keeping in touch with what's happening in DC. And so when I think about challenges, I want to start off by saying our nation is really in a care crisis right now. For those who depend on paid care workers, there's a tremendous shortage of care workers. Those who provide paid care work are often dealing with low wages, no access to sick or family leave. There's a real caregiving crisis. And as a family caregiver, as someone who may be taking care of, your family without compensation, it's really hard times for family caregivers too. With prices going up, with the need to balance work and care, that's nothing new. It's been a challenging landscape for a while. And I think that continues to be the case. But I think there's movement. I think there's hope. I think there's progress. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But what I wanted to share with you are sort of two updates from the federal policy aspect, if that's okay with you all.
Mm.
Okay. The first, and I think for both of these, I'm going to talk about them as a challenge and an opportunity. The first one has to do with the Older Americans Act. So this is a piece of federal legislation that just turned 60 years old, actually, as part of the Medicare and Medicaid legislation that also turned 60. What the Older Americans Act does, it provides federal level funding that goes to every state, and then every state passes it through its local aging services network to provide things like home delivered meals, transportation, and family caregiver supports. It is what funds the National Family Caregiver Support Program. In Hawaii, you may recognize this as Kapuna Care. It is the funding stream that supports Kapuna Care, among many other things. If you're familiar with the Office of Elder Affairs, that is the agency that receives Older Americans Act funding and distributes it. So it's really important, but not a lot of people know about it. And a challenge that we're facing is that the Older Americans Act has not yet been reauthorized. It's supposed to be reauthorized every 10 years. It hasn't been. It got very, 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 very close last year, but at the last minute, it didn't go through. So what we're seeing happening is funding is being appropriated, but the funding levels are staying flat, while the number of people needing the services and the cost of those services is increasing. So for the past few years, in effect, we've seen a decrease in Older Americans Act funding, just doing the math between the need versus the flat amount of money available. This year in Hawaii, about $988 million have been appropriated. $988,000 have been, almost $1 million have been appropriated. I know that you agree with me that it needs to be more than that. And that is specifically for the Family Caregiver Support Program. So what we're seeing in DC, there's real federal interest in strengthening the family caregiver support dollars, particularly in the provision of respite, which is, paying for someone to come and be with your loved one while you take a break, maybe for a day, maybe for a week, to take a vacation, desperately needed vacation. That's what we mean by respite generally. So there's bipartisan federal interest in supporting that at the federal level. But, and there is, some promise there. There is hope that funding will increase for that. But the other thing that happened in DC earlier this year is that the Administration for Community Living, which is the agency that distributes Older Americans Act dollars that funnels into Kapuna Care, that was dismantled and effectively redistributed across other agencies within the federal government. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid picked up some of that. A new agency was born. The structure doesn't matter. What's important for caregivers to know is that there may be some risk to how those funds get channeled from the federal level to the state to the local level as a result of this dismantling. That could mean things like monies not being released on time. It could mean things like states requests for different funding levels not making it to the right people who may no longer be at the federal, it could mean a number of things and we just don't know yet. But I wanted to flag this. I think everyone should be aware of the Older Americans Act, and this is a good chance to call your elected official, tell them how Kapuna Care has been important to you, tell them that you need it to continue and need more money if that is what you believe. That's sort of the first bucket of challenge opportunity. Good news, there's bipartisan support. Bad news, there's been some shakeup. We don't know what's going to get done. The second federal legislation that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is something called the Credit for Caring Act. This is currently in the House. And the idea here is this would be a federal tax credit of up to $5,000 for people who are taking care of their family members that incur out-of-pocket expenses. It would be income-based. The degree of the tax credit would be factored into your income level, but it could really offer some additional financial support for families in Hawaii and beyond who are spending out of pocket on any number of things related to the care of their loved one. The good news here is that there really is bipartisan support, and the Trump administration has signaled they're in favor of supporting caregivers in this way. To move this forward, we do know that hearing directly from caregivers matters. So if this is something that you think is a good idea that you would benefit from, again, this is another opportunity to call your representatives. If this moves forward, it will then go to the Senate. So it's not a bad idea to call your senator too and express your support or not for something like this. It's important that your elected officials hear from you about this issue. So let me stop there. Those are sort of two challenges, the broad challenge and some legislation that could help, but that faces its own set of challenges.
Thanks, Leanne. And the second question you've kind of touched upon, but if you'd like to add any other signs of hope for caregivers, that relief is on the way, beyond these two acts, we'd really like to hear.
Yeah, I can't. I think what I'll say is this. I draw hope in knowing that every day there are more and more family caregivers joining the ranks of family caregivers, and community and collaboration and collective voices matter. If every single caregiver came over to DC tomorrow, I can almost guarantee you something would pass. There are 63 million people in this nation providing care. So take a lot of hope and a lot of optimism, knowing A, you're not alone. B, there are a lot of other people that need and want the same things as you. And adding your voice to that choir matters, especially when it comes to engaging not only with your federal elected officials, but with county executives, with mayors, with, anyone in the public sector. They need to hear from you. They need to hear your stories. I'm heartened by knowing that caregiving continues to be such a fundamental human expression of love, of humanity. It's such a fundamental expression of humanity. And in a world and in an environment where it feels like so many people are trying to rip us apart on our differences, I think there's real hope in knowing that no matter what side of the aisle we're on, no matter what our beliefs are, no matter religion, race, whatever, 63 million of us are engaged in this fundamental act of humanity together, and there's real power in that. So collective voice, add your voice to that choir. I draw a lot of hope from that.
Yeah, thank you. And then finally, any special messages for us caregivers out in Hawaii? We're all the way across the continent and halfway across the Pacific Ocean. Any words for us? Yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, I spend a lot of time talking with ASA members who represent, every state. Hawaii's sense of community, Hawaii's sense of ohana, Hawaii's sense of joy that comes from caring for each other is unique. That's not a dig on any other state out there, but I think it's a real asset. And like I said, there's real power in numbers. There's real power in collective voice. And that is something that so many communities in Hawaii do so organically and so naturally. You're not alone. You're not alone. You are in good company. And if you're affiliated with the Caregiver Foundation, you know that already. There's real power, there's real magic, there's real humanity in that. I also want to let you know that if you are interested in sort of understanding at a national level what other caregivers are doing, a new report just came out a couple weeks ago. It's called Caregiving in the US. And it comes out every 5 years. Our friends at AARP and the National Alliance for Caregiving put it out every 5 years. So if you're interested in reading, there's a lot of statistics in there, but it's easy to navigate if you're interested to see how many caregivers are working, how many caregivers out there are reporting feelings of joy and uplifts that they get out of the caregiving experience. If you want to see where you fit in, how you compare to other caregivers, it's a really great report just to take a look at. But there's also real power in taking that report to your elected officials and saying, look, there's a lot of us and here's what we need. And I'm adding my story to that, my voice to that.
Well,
That's
thank
great.
you very much, Leanne. I feel encouraged and empowered just from our little conversation. So, Gary, do you want to add?
It's really interesting that we have a common voice across all the cultures, all the conflicts that our country and the world is facing. And when you stop and really look at what binds us together, it is our family.
Emily.
My frequent reminder from different members of my family is that in the end, it's family that matters, nothing else. And the more we can focus on realizing that we're family as a blood family, but we're also family as a larger collective family. So it is encouraging to hear that there's 63 million of us. That's a little scary too, but that's a huge number of people, and it can wield tremendous power. So
Yeah, I agree. It's 1 out of every 4 adults. 1 out of every 4 people you pass on the street is probably going through something like you are.
that is something.
Yeah.
That's terrific. Oh, thank you so much. That update is really valuable to us.
Well, anytime I can be helpful, I'm here.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Leanne?
No, I think you can stop the recording.
Okay. We'll, if I can
Good.
figure out how to do that,
That was
hope.
tremendous. Oh,
I don't even know.
because otherwise we'll have to edit.